you all understand things very well, you'll ask the right questions, and more importantly, you are asking the questions that can make a change. And this here at Democracy World is a platform for you to ask those questions. Like we said, it's a freedom of speech initiative. So we begin this session right now. And let me tell you, the person who's going to come on stage right now, she is somebody who you all have seen on television. She's a firebrand spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. And let me please call on stage Madam Meenakshi Lekhi, a politician, but more than that, she's also an advocate. But interestingly, and I'm hoping, and I told her that, please spare me on stage because I've known how you do. Thank you so much for joining here at ThePrint. First, we'll have to have a round of applause. I have given a lot of... Didn't I tell you about those fanboy, fangirl moments that we've seen since morning here? So we've seen a lot of them. I'm sure you're going to see. We've only seen some that happened. But I start this session asking you the most important question. Just when we finished lunch and we were coming in now, there was a young boy who was talking to you and asking you about not seeing you on debates these days. Why are you missing on debates?
So my problem is that when you are an elected representative, you have a constituency to deal with. I don't have the luxury of being on television that I used to have earlier. And responsibility is towards the people who have voted for you. So your first answerability is towards the people who have voted for you. And now if you can, in between, find a little time to be on TV or on stage, you do manage that.
And that's why today you can ask all the questions you want to her.
Absolutely.
And she's there to answer. In today's world, there are a lot of debates that take place, especially of intolerance, not being able to speak. Democracy World is about freedom of speech. Do you feel at some point of time that you need to censor yourself too?
Well, we all have, there's nothing called free speech, free speech. Every speech has to be nuanced speech. And I feel most of the literature which has been written is about free speech, but actually it should be about how free the speech can be. So if how free the speech can be, you deal with people's sensibilities, you deal with illegitimate and illegal things as your restraint. There are, within the framework of free speech, the idea of constraints and restraints is always there. And that's what determines how free the speech, free speech can be.
Wow. But then I'll have to ask you this. Why is it a fear to speak up one's mind?
I don't think I have that. And anyone who knows that would say that I am afraid of speaking my mind. And all I say is that whatever you say or speak, one thing is that you must research your subjects well. Do not formulate your opinion by reading some newspaper. I mean, I have a huge thing, even the social media can be controlled by various methodologies. And all of you are engineers. Nobody would understand algorithms better than all of you do. So I feel the research going to the primary data, many things will change. So before making up one's mind, the research behind that subject should be complete. And we all go through the process of evolution. We all make up our mind in the first instance, then we go deeper, travel deeper, and we find layer after layer how the subject is dealt with, what is behind, what is not being shown. So there's always a backstory to the, intolerance or whatever. One should learn to read the backstory. That's what I believe in.
But in this political scenario that we have at this point of time, there is a sense कि कुछ बोल दूं, if I say something, what if I offend? And that will cause a severe backlash. Now, when I see you smile, you know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure most of them here are. Because, for example, even now, just some time ago, when we had one of our friends who performed as a stand-up comedian, he was like, maybe I should rethink about some jokes on Modi ji. Is there a sense of fear that if I crack a joke, I'll end up in jail?
I don't know how many have been put in jail for cracking a joke. And this kind of narrative which is sought to be built needs to be corrected. The fact is, the maximum criticism of a sitting prime minister, if this country has seen, it happens to be Mr. Modi. And for doing what? For making Shauchalaya, for making your GDP as 7.2 going to be 7.3, for changing laws, for removing all the stupid, silly laws which this country didn't clean up, didn't even do housekeeping with laws, for doing all the right things, the kind of baiting that happens towards Mr. Modi. And every newspaper is free to write, everybody is free to print, everybody is free to speak, and free to say things. I can say Shekhar come from a generation, and he headed that newspaper, which went blank during Congress time. And there was a press act. So the freedom of speech this country is enjoying today never existed earlier because there was no social media.
Well, but is it true that they say that when you go on debates these days, especially from the party, that your answers are scripted or cleared and you have to be only this, you would stick to your script and nothing more than that?
No. No. I think, again, I will say the backstory is rumor mongering. So a lot of rumor mongering happens. What you need to answer is usually on the spot. I have attended debates and things where some other subject was told to me and completely different subject was put forward. So I said, these guys were so scared of my research. But anyways, I store many things up here. So this kind of rumor mongering is pretty silly. But yes, you definitely want, especially the spokesperson of the party. Who would you send as a debater to represent your college? Who would you send? Anybody who will raise your hand?
Can we see a show of hands of answers? If you want, we'll have the mic going around.
Who represents your quizzing team? Who represents your debating team? Yeah, please.
We don't need names, we need characteristics. We need people. Okay, can we do this quickly, please?
Okay, so I will answer it for you.
Okay, there's one quick question.
You know,
there's one quick question.
Okay.
There. Quickly. Your name first, please, and your question.
Abhishek, ma'am. My question is, as the people who are holding JP Narayan's legacy, how do you justify the fact that for free speech, we need a democracy wall 4.5 years into BJP's government?
Wait,
Why
Abhishek,
do we need something like a
she's
democracy?
asked you a question.
I was answering her, and my question was, who would represent, I mean, as a student body, we've all gone to college. Yeah. So as a student body, who do you want to participate in your debates? Someone who's good, right? Someone who can debate well. Someone who has facts on fingertips. Someone who researches well and doesn't go unprepared, right? Now, we normally used to have, when I was in college, we used to have a team of 4 or 5 people. We would normally, even if, say, I was not the speaker on that particular debate, but my contribution in terms of a researcher was always there. So we would all sit together and we would all help our friends who are debating. So I guess when any political party, if it's an organized function, and if it's an organization which is supporting spokesperson and parties, and you want a certain point of view, you always want people who have researched their subject very well. You always want people who are good orators. You want people who don't look too shabby also. I'm sorry, because it's an age of television. So visual media is important. Now, these characteristics you would probably search for. Sometimes you feel, and one gets offended, when you see that people have not researched because there's a mic, you must speak. You know, aapko kya kehna hai? So that's where you kind of put restrictions that these are the people who should speak, because we all understand that media has a tendency to put mics in front of people who fumble, who do not answer right. So I guess to streamline that system is always important. And it is in that sense that certain amount of research on who should represent you. Like, I wouldn't like to be represented by a person who makes a fool of himself. Certainly not. I would want a person to speak for me who works well, who researches the subject well, and is sensible. So,
but do you see, after all the research that you do and the detailing that you do, that these debates turn pointless?
Of
Because
course.
there's so much of
Of course.
you do.
Of course.
Then
Of
why,
course.
so TV debates today are absolutely pointless.
Many debates are pointless. Many debates are agenda items. Many debates are carried out because there is an agenda behind, there's a backstory to it. There are heroes made out of people who are not heroes in the first place. The questions which should be asked are not asked to those people. And some heroes need to be demeaned. So you carry out an agenda. All that happens. And I've seen it at very close quarters. I mean, for example, about Mr. Modi, the kind of narrative which is set to be created, come on. The guy's worked so hard in 4.5 years. Everybody, right, left, and center, a non-entity will publish a blog, will write something, will crack a joke, will do this, and they say, oh, I'm so scared. Man, what has happened to you? Why are you scared? Because you've already said what you wanted to say. So this nonsense should stop somewhere. And I'm using the word nonsense with a reason, because I think many people act out of agenda. But it's okay. I mean, we take it in a stride. I take it in a stride.
Well, I'm going to throw this, this forum out for questions for now. I'm going to take 2-3 questions and then we will continue asking some more. Can I get the mics around, please? Please keep your questions concise and please give me your name before you start.
Like right now you said that most of the debates that goes on in television at this very moment are frivolous and useless in case...
Made out to be frivolous.
Made out to be frivolous, and they are at times made out to demean the people who might or might not be working, or take up the standards of people who might not be working. Ma'am, does your statement somewhere or other also state that the media in today's world, is it somewhere politically inclined towards some or other political party or political stance, or take stances of some people who are governing, so that they might be benefited from that?
So what's your name?
Ma'am, my name is Vaibhav.
Raghav? Vaibhav. Okay. Thank you very much, Vaibhav, because you brought a very important subject which is necessary to develop an understanding. And in terms of developing an understanding, I have been someone who's been a votary of free media, freedom of speech, coming from a legal background, and coming from the background which has seen the brunts of non-operation of freedom of speech. With all that background, I have come to a conclusion that media was a noble profession, as we used to say back then, law, medicine, like that, media was considered a noble profession. Fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, these are changing times, when medicines become a business, laws also become a business, and so has media become a business. So many a times what really happens in real life, there are investments coming in, there are people who need very fat salary, there are, and why should they not? They should. I mean, everybody is clamoring for looking after their family. Everybody needs a car and everybody needs a home. Why should we expect that people working as journalists should always be living on paltry amounts? They should earn as well as any other profession. With all this comes a certain sense that people who control the salary packages or people who control the advertising rights, people who can book pages will also control the content, or at least, if not the content, the coverage aspect they would control. And one has to, over a period of time, inculcate a habit within oneself. For example, it doesn't come naturally, but when I was growing up in this field, I would read, even today I read about 11 newspapers, only to get a sense as to what the truth is. Because then I get into the background check, who owns how much, who's supporting what, and all those mental calculations happen, and you say, okay, from where this particular aspect is brought out and what will be the tinge of the argument. And I think we all learn to develop this, and today is the age of information, and today is the age of knowledge. So we all have access to knowledge. We may have to work a little harder. Maybe on the first hit we will not get, But if I want the data today on any subject, anything, it's much, much, much easier than it was when I was your age. So when I was your age, we had to sit in the libraries, search through the papers, pick up something, whatever we could get, may not be in a position to get all the information, but today with the click of a button, you get everything. There may be certain sites which are blocked, but you know how to route it and how to get in. You know exactly how to get into police site also. So, and get the FIR numbers. So there's a different time. And I think it's a good time for democracy to get more stable, because more knowledge is more empowerment, and more empowerment means we are going to stabilize our democracy.
Well, can we get some mics going around there? Yes. Introduce yourself with your name, please.
Okay, ma'am, I'm Vaibhav.
Weber versus Weber.
No, ma'am, it's not versus.
It's and.
And.
Yes, absolutely.
Ma'am, I want to ask, in mid of this progress and development, why we are needing to change the place's name? First, Gurgaon become Gurugram, now Allahabad is becoming Prayagraj. Why it is so?
All right, so I will, my answer, please. And then we can think who to clap for. Okay, so I have changed 5 names myself. And I will give you the history of changing those 5 names. So when we are talking about history of India, do we only have history of India which reminds us of, like inane names which have no meaning? Or do we have ideals behind them? Or do we have some good history in this country for which we should be proud of? Have we forgotten our correct history? So there is a lot of ideals and correction process which I think every country must go through. So even in, say, Princeton, for example, Princeton has one of their, okay, let me not give the example of Princeton. I'll give you a very local example. So in Delhi, we have a road called Aurangzeb Road. We had that road, right? And this particular history or this particular road was built during British time. As a sensible Indian, who would want to praise Aurangzeb? And when APJ Kalam, as our president, expired, I thought this was the best moment to change the name of that road into APJ Kalam Road, because that is my ideal. So it was less about Aurangzeb and more about APJ Kalam. Similarly, Panchkuiya Road. Now, is there anyone from Delhi? Lots of people. So tell me, anyone who can tell me the meaning why a road should be called Panchkuiya. Did you ever get into the history of Panchkuiya Road? Okay, not one. All right. Panchkuiya was a road in which, in those years, early or mid 19th century, 1800 something, Ahilya Bai Holkar, who was the queen, was traveling through this road, and she, because there was drought in Delhi and it was controlled by Mughals that time, who were not even providing for the people drinking water, and there was drought. So she had 5 wells constructed, and that's why it was called Panchkuiya Road. Now a lady, a woman ruler in 19th century, does such a noble deed, but people remember her as, people don't remember her, she's not idolized. People say, Panchkuiya na, kuch bhi chalega. Why Panchkuiya yaar, why not Ahilya Bai Holkar? Why not? Why Ahilya Bai Holkar is my ideal. Why should women not think of becoming rulers? Why should women not think of doing good deed? Why should there be any discrimination of any kind? A ruler means someone who has to provide for food, water, and security. And that's the job she did, but people have very nicely forgotten about her. So I changed that road. Dalhousie Road. How many of you have read about Dalhousie? Should a road in New Delhi be named after Dalhousie? Doctrine of lapse, everyone would remember. Now, anyone who remembers your own history, why are we having to continue with Dalhousie in independent India? So I made it as Dara Shukor Road. I'm purposely sharing these stories. So a correction in ideals, a correction in thought, because you name a road, you name a place out of affection and idealism. And I think in politics, as long as idealism is alive, people of this country are safe and country is safe. And that's why we must continue with idealism. So changing names is about ideas and idealism.
Can we get the mic? Yes, go ahead. Ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, it's a pleasure talking to you. You are one of the very few sensible spokesperson that I watch on.
Thank you. I take a bow.
Yeah. Ma'am, when we talk about free speech, the things like hate speeches and fake news, they are a combined package of free speech. So when the thing is that someone is celebrating death of a renowned journalist, like in case of Gauri Lankesh, they are celebrating it on social media and on media. And people like very renowned politicians, like of many political parties of a particular ideology, are appreciating it. They are celebrating someone's death, and people of such stature are being followed by very eminent politicians of our country. So does it implicate that those politicians are in accordance with the ideology and they believe in the same thought process?
So without getting into the names, a philosophical answer to your query, or my understanding of what free speech is. So my understanding of free speech is, free speech cannot be a hate speech. Free speech cannot be an abusive speech. And in every discussion, there is a room for civility. And robust civility is what we need in free speech. So we can go on arguing about ideas, ideals, our refrain, our acceptance of principle, non-agreements. But civility and robust civility is what will ensure free speech. And for any democracy to rise to the level of free speech, a complete free speech, you need to establish basic value system, and that is a very robust civil behavior.
We don't see that very often because...
come on, don't say that.
No, and that is why I said very often. I know you weigh your words and I'm weighing my words here for the simple reason that when we address an issue also, the way it is portrayed, there are two ways of looking at it. In a very brash manner, which we do see very often on social media, and that's where civility just completely does not even exist. But that's also a mode of communication today. But
no, it cannot be a mode of communication. It is...
So how do you term social media then?
So that is where that's where my problem lies. I feel you can argue the worst and most divisive and sensitive subjects in a very, very detailed way, and that's what as lawyers we do. And I always give the examples of lawyers because that's the place I grew in, and I grew up, and whoever I am, whatever I am, a lot of learning goes on in life. You may not agree to a single line, a word of the other person, but that is when you are appearing as professionals in a court case, and you argue that matter out. The moment you step out of the door of the court, you're friends and you go for a cup of coffee. And that's what I feel the change in attitudes also needs to happen. That each one of us is doing our bit, what we think is right, what I believe in is right. And I'm not saying that is right for everyone. Maybe people have a different point of view, and if I am wrong, you have every business to correct me, or I have every business to correct you. But civility of discourse should not be lost. And that's where I would say more and more people should get into debating and get into debating skills, but always maintain the voice control. At times you can lose it because you get too emotional about things, but it's okay. But that doesn't mean there's anything personal. I mean, I may not agree with you. I may not agree with Shekhar, what Coffee, that we know that Faith, that person is a nice person. He or she is only doing his or her job. That much grace we must have. And I think if we can maintain that, that is what will lead to a decent social life. So in social media, my problem is, which I have been repeatedly saying at various platforms, one is the anonymity gives that kind of right where people can choose to misbehave. So if you were to say something, or I were to say something, the social shame in us will restrain ourselves. We will not abuse each other. We'll probably, look the other way. You may look the other way. But that doesn't mean you will abuse me or I will abuse you, because your identity, my identity is there. And everyone can judge us by our identity. The problem with social media, which I see, is anonymity. Now, anonymity is both a shield and a sword. So it's a shield. At times you don't want to be identified, you want to say something. And so it's a shield, which at times be necessary. But it's also a sword, because it's giving you a right to hack anyone's reputation, trash anyone, and move on, which is not the right thing. So balance is what I seek, and that's why if I were to say, I don't know, maybe I'll be lynched, that let every account be tagged to a national identity. Your Aadhaar, your passport, something. Let's see who abuses them.
Well, can I get one more question now?
This time not Vaibhav.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Aziz. And basically, I just need to firstly follow up with the question of changing the names. Is the government doesn't have any other work of just changing the name? Because this is what country needs right now. And why we need to go into the history? Why don't we work in the present of the investing in the infrastructure and betterment of the people? Why we need to go into history and check what our history matters right now?
Aziz,
is this the government required?
Aziz. You are very Aziz to me, so I'll answer it. And my answer is very simple. Who is Aziz to you? The present history of India, the present ideals of India, or Aurangzeb's? Exactly. So the present condition, I would want everyone to follow and lead by example of APJ Kalam. What wrong am I doing? What wrong am I doing? Now, I want people to follow the example of Dara Shikoh, who was erudite academician, a very, very responsible man who saw society differently. Should I make him the example, or should I continue with Dalhousie? History matters because these forces divide us. We need to get unifying forces. And unifying forces are based out of principles, ideals, which every society should aspire and live by.
I'm just taking one more question right now. We don't seem to have too many backbenchers today. Okay, can we have right there? There's a lady who wants to ask the question, yes, right behind.
I think let's get a woman.
Yes.
So I'm going to stride a bit. I'm going to ask a question. What is the percentage of girl students in engineering college?
Can you?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
1 second, hang on. Yeah.
What is the percentage of girl students in engineering college?
Ma'am,
huh?
So how many?
20-30%?
20-30%.
So you guys would prefer if it was 50%? Yeah? So much for women lib. Let's clap for them.
Go ahead, ask your question.
Ma'am, first of all, I admire you a lot. My entire family idealizes you because you're such an amazing speaker. My grandparents follow Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha a lot. So during that, I watch with them, and I observed that there are a few very sensible speakers, such as you and many others, but half the speakers just beat around the bush, don't talk about what's important, and keep crying about things which are frivolent, which are not even of prime importance in the current time. So how do you think that the people who we vote for the parliament are not able to deliver it as well? You're talking about the TV news anchors. Even the parliament is not as effective as it should be. So what do you feel can be done for the parliament to be made more effective?
Did you take a look at my questionnaire? Because you're taking my questions away.
May I know your name?
My name is Samyukta.
Sayukta, which state do you come from?
Tamil Nadu.
All right. So, I feel so speaking is about leadership, what we visualize and what a person's vision is. But a lot of administration and a lot of governance is about management. So when you want to deliver on policies, when you want to reach out to people, when you have to take the plans forward, it's not necessarily vision and visibility, but it's also about management, how you manage your constituency, how you are approachable to people, how confident people are about electing you. So these people get elected. These people get elected not for their oratory, but they get elected for their management skills through which they manage their constituency. And everybody in this country, we are such a diverse country, which represents all kinds of sex, communities, creed, gender, everything. Now, in that diversity, a lot of people are still struggling with their basic amenities. You know, who I can go to and can get a road made for me. Who will come for my child's marriage? Who knows my grandfather or father and have always stood by our bad times. So there are many areas due to which people get elected and not necessarily their oratorial skill. And I do not think a leader like an elected representative should be judged only by oratory. Because if oratory was such a thing, then dialogue delivery should become the mainstream thing. But it is not. So dialogue delivery, sorry, I have a huge bias, if I may use the word. I have huge bias towards people who only speak. In Hindi, when I was growing up, we used to say, "Ratta maar ke aa jate hain." अभी आप लोग पता नहीं क्योंकि engineering students हैं तो you don't do that ratification. But
in the din of debate,
but my point is, many a times people have not thought about the subject. Many a times people do not have the knowledge or hard work which is behind a debate. So somebody is writing for you. It's a dialogue delivery session. You go up and do whatever play act. And then some people get swayed by it. Not necessarily you're a great leader. A great leader has other qualities and don't judge people only on their oratory. Thank you very much.
So debates are scripted? No way, debates are scripted then?
See, everybody, I wouldn't say, because I won't, even if I were to ask you and you were to support me, you are my supporter like Sanyukta is. Even if I were to ask you that, I'm going to go and interact with young kids today, would you tell me the questions? You didn't, okay? And whatever response you will give me, I will not even accept. But that is me. Not necessarily everybody conducts the business like that. They may say, "Acha yaar, zara jo sawal hai wo bhi bata do, jawab bhi bata do, jaake bolayenge." So each one to oneself. And like every business, politics also has its loopholes. So taking support from people, having a thought about a certain point of view, coming out with ideas. So there is a thought leadership, there is an action leadership. And I personally feel, because of so much of deprivation in our country, the thought leadership gets restricted to some people who maybe are blessed or have certain training. But mostly it's about delivery mechanisms, which this country has suffered over 70 years. So it's about delivering also. You may give a good speech, but your roads are not done. Your water connections which were sought, you're not there. You are a very badly behaved person. What will that skill take you?
Ma'am, a small follow-up, but when half the time the sessions get adjourned, when there could have actually been some very good, useful discussion during that time, and it would be in turn a waste of time as well as money which is being spent in conducting such sessions in the parliament. How do you think that instead of adjourning the sessions again and again, how can it be made more fruitful?
Sanyukta, I agree with you, because I am the first time parliamentarian. I have come into the parliament only in this session, and my attendance is above 95%, if I can take pride in. I've been a sincere student, but there are some very bright students which you guys would have also seen in your college who don't attend classes yet score marks. So It's okay. And life is a mix of all kinds of things. But I take your point. I think, and since I am not responsible for stalling Parliament, I am the one who's every time eagerly waiting for my turn. Even if half an hour before the debate I'm told you got to speak on this, I'll immediately say, okay, let me just sit down with my iPad and call for papers and give me the copy of the bill. I think there are many like me, and there are a whole lot of people who put in that effort. When the time is wasted, people like us do feel very suffocated and don't like it. But I guess you've got to communicate to people who stall the Parliament. It's not me.
Do you enjoy TV debates? Because I have a fun question after that for you.
Well, I enjoy sometimes.
So who's your favorite anchor then?
No, I'm not going to say that.
No,
because then I will be discriminating against many good anchors. So there is no favorite. But I enjoy debating. Sometimes it's just that on television, when you have a very large panel, and you're not able to speak your mind, and you're not able to put your question forward. But if Shekhar was to do one-on-one with me, I'll enjoy that.
Well, two more questions. One here, please. Can I get the mic here? And one right behind there, the boy in the check shirt. And I think we'll have to wrap up this question-answer session.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, so considering, in one of your previous replies, you talked, so firstly, we do stand on the basis that free speech essentially constitutes democracy, right? So when we're taking that into consideration, when you talk about not including hate speeches and mudslinging as a part of free speech, that basically means that you're constituting a framework for what entails free speech. And doesn't that go against the very idea of what free speech stands for?
No. John Stuart Mill is what I will prescribe for you. Please read it. And free speech, as I said, that the most complex, most divisive, and most controversial subjects can be discussed if you can be civil about it. And that robust civility, I think, is what is needed. You may hate me, but you don't have to abuse me. You can go on arguing on that subject with me, multiple questions, which is allowed. But if you say, she's this, she's that, and I pick up my shoe, throw at you, this is not free speech. This is free action. And we can't have action for all. I mean, that's not done. Free speech has an inherent restraint. And that inherent restraint, or innate quality, if I can say, is about robust civility. And that's what we must focus on.
But while we're on free speech, also we have the Me Too campaign that is gaining a lot of momentum. But while saying so, there are names, and a long list of names that are from various industries. There's a name of a minister and also a representative from the BJP. Why is the party quiet about reacting on this?
So
because companies have taken stands and they have decided that they will run an internal inquiry or whatever that be.
So the minister you're talking about comes from print media. So I think editors should speak for that.
But he's also a representative of the people.
And secondly, that was on the lighter note. My question would be, how long you've been in this profession?
16 years.
So long enough time and senior enough. You mean to say in media there is no sexual harassment?
I am not saying that.
I'm asking you a question.
Okay, I would like to answer this. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. When you are getting a platform to talk about it and names are being called out.
You agree it exists?
Yes, it does.
Right?
Not only in media, in every field.
No, let me answer it. Okay. Last point. It exists in media, and then the word added is it exists in every field. Okay. I'm taking the answer from there. That sexual harassment is serious business. It exists everywhere where man-women interaction happens, and men somehow think they are superior creatures. So if you can correct that bias and that notion of freedom, then a lot of it will get corrected. Simply because a girl walks into your office for a job does not mean she gives you a right to exploit her. Or joke indecently with her or touch her inappropriately. Now, all these things relate to sexual harassment at workplace. And I normally say, don't have to wait for 10 years or 20 years, handle it in 10 minutes. Right there and then. I have been a gender trainer. Sometimes I've conducted those classes. And my motivational part is usually about handling sexual harassment situations. When there is a long lag of time, you bring suspicion onto yourself. I'm not saying what you're saying is right or wrong. It is individualistic cases. What's right, what's wrong will be determined. And again, coming as a lawyer, not a very emotional certification I would do. I would say if somebody is mishandling you, somebody is mistreating you, you should immediately put that in writing, putting the time there, that 10:30 I entered, right now it's 10:54, this is exactly what happened with me, and then your mind is also fresh. This happened, and this is how I handle it. When you come after 10 years, 20 years, I mean, what you said is absolutely right, that sexual harassment is a reality of the day. And even earlier times it happened. But the second reality is many women use sexuality also. That is also a reality. There are many false cases of all kinds. So when you are dealing with the complex issue of this nature, timing is very, very important. I'm not judging anyone because it will all depend on the facts of that case at that very point in time, what really transpired. But personally, I feel that instead of Me Too, we should campaign, handle it right there and then.
But would actually...
and give that confidence to women that you have the authority, you have the autonomy, walk out on no matter who that boss is, no matter which organization you work in, and come out with it right there and then and that moment, and that will give the confidence. Changing attitudes is hard to come, but when women start speaking about it, at that moment, it will help the cause.
But would the Bharatiya Janata Party set an example by, in a sense, for the simple reason that why I'm asking you as a spokesperson of the party itself. There are others who are taking their course, they're doing what they have to do, but would any action be taken?
See, again, so far as law is concerned, you're dealing with a lawyer, not a journalist, who has to write a story. And my legal opinion or point of view would be that whenever a complaint is made about someone, it needs to be investigated, it needs to be tested, veracity needs to be quantified, qualified, otherwise it becomes a libel or a defamatory complaint. So going by all this, I feel things have to be handled in a very mature way. We are dealing with a very sensitive issue which is very close to women's heart. Every woman in the audience, on the dais, I mean, I'm a much older person. You are also
old enough.
No, old enough. You're young enough, I would say. You're young. But all women would agree to a point of view that sexual harassment at workplace is a reality. Men in power, because normally men have been in power. Women have not reached that stage where women are in power, or that kind of power where they exude and they can, maybe there are cases in France and there are other cases where women have misused their position, but usually it's the men who have misused their position for sexual gratification. Under those circumstances, the cause is sensitive, needs to be addressed, but maybe Me Too is not the right methodology of addressing it. That's my view.
Well, last question here. Can I get the mic here, please?
Can I take one question?
Yes, go ahead.
Then
one last question.
Yeah,
thank you.
Following up on Ajiz's question, how is talking about changing the name of the roads more important than, once again, ma'am, lack of education, unemployment, poverty? I'm sure, I respect APJ Abdul Kalam sir a lot. I'm sure he would want more missiles, more rockets to be developed rather than changing the name of the road, right?
If both are happening simultaneously, will you produce more APJ Kalam by giving roads name of Aurangzeb? I want more APJs to be produced. Number of missiles has gone up, number of satellites have gone up, and ISRO is doing much better than it was doing earlier. Go on the site and check the data.
Yeah, ma'am, while we commend the initiative of changing roads so that the India becomes proud, we don't see the same kind of enthusiasm when we're talking about laws, right? BJP is big, like BJP doesn't want the Article 377 to be changed. They didn't want the adultery law to be changed. And all of that felt on like courts becoming activists and changing.
From where do you get all your datas?
Ma'am, even...
Okay, let me answer you on 377. Please be seated. On 377, government told the court, you take a call and we will abide by what you decide. Okay? So it's not as if government opposed it. Number two, for your knowledge, the affidavit in the court was filed by the previous government's ASG, and Mr. Malhotra was his name, PP Malhotra, who argued against 377. And even today, the 377 exists on the statute books, but it has been read. So reading it to allow consensual, which, by the way, in 200 plus years of history of this country, not even 2 cases of consensual sex in this country exist. So there's a lot of hoopla about it, which unnecessarily is being labeled on BJP. BJP has got nothing to do with it. I mean, BJP, for all you know, like a bunch of any society, will have people of all kinds of orientation like any other party. So you label a political party when completely contrary facts exist. And that's why I say, please do the reading. And please research the subject better. And even on adultery, so what the argument in the court was? The argument in the court was that it will impact society. Now my argument, contrary to that, which I have written a piece also, if it gets published in the coming week, the Week magazine, I write a piece called Forthright. So I've written it, sent it, I was late, I didn't reach the deadline, but let's hope it gets incorporated. So the law was, which you can check old videos, records, where I've openly criticized the section. And I have said, how does a person decide in terms of adultery? If a woman is adulterous and she has an affair outside her marriage, husband gets the right to prosecute the man. And woman is considered a victim. Do you think women are victims in adulterous relationships? They are participants.
It depends on consensus again.
Yeah. Consensus. I mean, if one is in adulterous...
Putting me in a tough spot. So
yeah,
I'm standing here.
So my point is, why I'm saying this, because my friend is old enough to know about these subjects. And I am very old, who has seen these things very closely. Women are not victims in adulterous relationships. They are participants. And if they are participants in those relationships, how is it only man should be convicted and not woman? One. Second aspect, which you must flip the side, and which is more relevant than the first part. The more relevant part is, if a man is in an adulterous relationship with a woman, wife has no right to prosecute the woman he's involved with, and wife has no right to prosecute the husband. How does that law work? Why should women not get the same rights? So I have opposed it multiple times. It impacts relationships, but we are a society which is changing. If I had my way, I'll make it criminal for both. But thankfully I don't have that way.
Well, we're running really short of time. We do not...
They have, and also I must add, lest I'm quoted, my joke is taken as seriously. So I must correct.
Freedom of expression, you
and my freedom of expression also tells me to communicate completely. And I would say adultery is a moral wrong. It's an ethical wrong. Law has recognized as a matrimonial wrong. So anybody who wants to seek a redressal should go under matrimonial law and not necessarily criminal law. So that is how the judges and their wisdom has sought to balance it. But being a woman, I would say, make it criminal for both.
Well, thank you so much. We're really running short of time. Listen, we are really, really running short of time. Do we have time? Well, she's giving me those eyes saying she has to leave, she has to catch a flight.
You guys can come with me to Chennai.
Exactly. Thank you so much. It's a fantastic session. We'll have a round of applause for her. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Lovely being with you.
Lovely talking to you.
So my favorite anchor.
Thank you so much. So while doing so, I'd like you to stay on stage, ma'am, and also like to call on stage Dr. Devendra Ram Kumar, the convener of Gravitas. Please come on stage. And Shekhar Gupta sir, who is the chairman and editor-in-chief of ThePrint. We would like to felicitate Meenakshi ma'am. They have this very beautiful... Can we have a round of applause for this, please? Thank you very much. I thought you would be more energetic after lunch, but it seems a little more disappointed. But thank you. You've had a fantastic session, a good interaction too. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
So did you all have a wonderful session? So you now don't think that politicians will not answer tough questions. No, politicians take tough questions. They give you the answers they want to give you, but they...
As per their understanding.
So I will tell you something about politics in half a minute because I can't have her miss her flight. See, many movements start in our country which are against politics. Even the Anna Hazare movement, Mera Neta Chor hai. Everybody had that cap. Ab wo cap काफी change हो गया है. Many things have come on that cap. You are saying that I'm not calling anybody a chore. So it started with a politician-hating movement. And then under that pressure, we had Nota, none of the above. Now, there are some times when one major political party gets beaten by Nota in some states. Also, that cap party also gets beaten in some states by Nota. But usually, Nota is an insult to democracy. Because you need politics. Without politics, there cannot be democracy. Otherwise, you will have Putin ka Raj or Xi Jinping ka Raj or any of these characters will come and rule. So you need democracy, politics for democracy. And for both politics and democracy, you need freedom of speech. And it's a tribute to freedom of speech that you have a member of parliament from the ruling party, a powerful member, so powerful that as those living in her constituency, we also feel extra powerful. Her aura transforms us. So she's come and she's all the way to Vellore and is willing to answer all your questions. So Meenakshi, thank you very much. I can call you Meenakshi. You're much younger than me. Thank you so much.